The hostess barely looked up. That was the first thing anyone noticed. Not the woman who had just walked through the door, not the little girl holding her hand, not the birthday crown tilted slightly to one side. The hostess glanced at her screen, tapped something with her pen, and said, "Do you have a reservation?" in the tone people use when they already believe the answer is no. "I do," the woman said. 7 o'clock, Whitfield." The hostess scrolled, paused, scrolled again. Then she found it. Because it was there, it had always been there, and her expression shifted in the smallest way. Not enough to be called an apology, just enough to be noticed. Right this way. Her name was Vivian Whitfield. She was 43 years old. She wore a dark green wrap coat that had seen better winters, a cream-colored blouse underneath, and flat ankle boots that she'd bought at a market in Montreal 6 years ago and refused to throw away because they still fit perfectly. Her daughter, Autumn, was 7 years old today. She wore a purple dress and a paper crown that said "Birthday Star" in gold letters, and she walked with the particular gravity of a child who understood that today was her day and intended to conduct herself accordingly. They followed the hostess past the bar, past the warm amber glow of the sconce lighting, past tables where couples leaned toward each other and business people talked with their hands. The restaurant, Arbor, on King Street West in Toronto, was the kind of place that existed quietly and expensively, the kind that didn't need a sign you could read from the sidewalk. Vivian had been here once before, years ago, at a dinner she had not chosen and had not particularly enjoyed. But Autumn had seen a photo of the dessert cart in a magazine at the dentist's office and had asked, with complete sincerity, if they could go there for her birthday. And so here they were. They were seated at a table near the back. Not the back like a private alcove, cozy and candlelit. The back like near the kitchen door, near the service station, where the bussers walked quickly and the noise was different, clattering, industrial. Not the soft hum of money spending itself. Vivienne looked at the table. She looked at the empty tables in the front section, the ones by the tall windows where the evening light was still coming in soft and gold. At least 4 of them unoccupied. She pulled out Autumn's chair, helped her settle the crown, and sat down across from her daughter without saying anything. "Is this where we're sitting?" Autumn asked. "This is where we're sitting," Vivienne said. Autumn considered this with the seriousness of someone doing long division. "Okay," she said finally. "But next year I want the window." "Next year," Vivian said, "you'll get the window." Their server, a young woman named Tanya, with a quiet voice and fast hands, appeared within 2 minutes and was genuinely kind. She brought Autumn a small glass of sparkling water with a cherry in it, unprompted, and called her "birthday girl" without it sounding rehearsed. Vivian ordered still water and a glass of the burgundy. Autumn studied the menu with tremendous concentration. It was when Tanya left that he appeared. He came from the direction of the host stand, moving through the room the way people move when they want everyone to notice they have somewhere important to be. He was perhaps 50, with silver at his temples and a dark suit that fit well enough to suggest he thought about it. "His name tag," said Jonathan Crane, "General Manager." He stopped at the edge of their table and did not sit down, which meant he intended this to be short. "Good evening," he said. "Not to Autumn, to Vivian. I wanted to check in personally about your seating." "That's thoughtful," Vivian said. "We do have a full house this evening." He gestured vaguely at the room. "Our reservation system places tables based on a number of factors: party size, timing, server sections. There are 4 empty tables by the window," Vivian said. He smiled. It did not reach anything above his jaw. "Those are held for parties that have made arrangements in advance. Premium seating reservation. I made a reservation, a standard reservation, yes." A small pause, weighted with something he didn't name. "Our premium tables do require a separate booking." Autumn was looking at the dessert menu. She had found the chocolate torte with the raspberry coulis, the one from the magazine, and was tracing the description with her finger. She wasn't listening. Or she was listening and had decided, in the way that 7-year-olds sometimes do, that the adult conversation didn't require her participation. Vivian looked at Jonathan Crane for a long moment. She had a way of looking at people that was not aggressive and was not warm. It was the look of someone reading a document carefully before signing. "The reservation," she said, "is under Whitfield. The table is booked for 7 o'clock. We're here. That is what a reservation is. Of course." Another smile. "I simply wanted to be transparent about our seating structure, Mrs. Mims," she said. "Whitfield." He nodded. "Ms. Whitfield. If you'd like to upgrade your seating experience in the future, our concierge team can assist with premium arrangements." He said it like he was doing her a favor, like he was letting her in on something. "For this evening, I'm sure Tanya will take excellent care of you." He left before she could say anything else, which was, she understood, entirely intentional. Tanya came back with their drinks. She set Vivienne's wine down gently and spent an extra moment arranging Autumn's sparkling water so the cherry-faced front. Vivienne watched her and thought, she knows. Not what would happen, just that something was off. Tanya had the particular careful kindness of someone compensating for something they couldn't fix. "I want the torte," Autumn announced. "You haven't ordered dinner yet, I know, but I want you to know I'm having the torte, so you won't be surprised." "I won't be surprised," Vivienne said. She picked up her own menu. The burgundy was good, better than she'd expected, which meant either the list was underpriced, or whoever had built it knew what they were doing. She thought about the tables by the window. She thought about the 4 of them, sitting there gold and empty in the evening light. She thought about what Jonathan Crane had said, and more precisely, what he had not said. She knew the difference. She had spent 43 years learning it. The restaurant filled over the next 30 minutes. Vivienne watched it happen the way she always watched things, quietly, from the periphery, taking inventory. A couple in their 60s were seated at the window table closest to the door. Behind them, a group of 4 women celebrating something, Prosecco already open. A man in a blue suit, alone, with a laptop he never opened. The room filled and the light changed and the noise rose and fell. And Autumn ate her salmon with the focused satisfaction of someone who had made an excellent choice and knew it. Jonathan Crane moved through the room. He stopped at the window tables. He shook the hand of the man in the blue suit. He topped up the Prosecco for the women's table himself, which made them laugh. He existed in this room as a man comfortable with his authority in it. He did not stop at their table again. It was the other server who came. Not Tanya. Tanya was still theirs, still quietly excellent. This was a floor manager type, young, with a clipboard and the look of someone who had been sent. He introduced himself as Kyle and said, in a voice carefully calibrated to sound routine, that the kitchen had flagged a concern about their seating arrangement. Vivian set down her fork. What kind of concern? Our fire code compliance team has noted that this section, he gestured at the area around them, has a slightly different occupancy designation during peak hours. We'd like to ask you to relocate temporarily, just while the kitchen is at full capacity. Relocate where? She said. We have a private waiting area near the host's stand that's quite comfortable and wants the main floor. We're in the middle of dinner, Vivian said. We would of course pause your order. No, she said it simply, not loudly. The word was a period, not an exclamation mark. We would not. Kyle stood there with his clipboard. He had the look of someone who had been told this would be easy and was now recalibrating. Autumn looked up from her salmon. Is something wrong? Nothing, Vivienne told her. We're staying. Kyle retreated. Vivian picked up her fork. Her wine was almost empty, and she did not order another glass because she wanted her head clear. Autumn told her about a girl at school named Bethany who had 2 hamsters, and one of them kept escaping and being found in increasingly unusual places. Vivian listened. She laughed in the right places. She was fully present in the conversation and simultaneously aware of everything else in the room. Jonathan Crane reappeared at 15 minutes to 9. He had someone with him, a man in an untailored jacket who held a radio on his belt and wore an expression of performative authority, not police. Security, or someone playing at it. They stopped at the table. Crane did not sit down. Mrs. Whitfield. His voice had changed. Warmer, almost. The warmth of someone who has made a decision and now just needs to execute it cleanly. I owe you an apology for the confusion earlier. However, I do need to let you know that we've had a concern raised by another guest about a disturbance at this table. Vivienne looked around the table. Their plates, their glasses. Autumn's birthday crown, slightly askew now after a full meal. What disturbance? She said. A guest reported feeling uncomfortable. He gestured in a direction that meant nothing. I'm sure it's nothing serious, but given our responsibility to all our guests, I've asked our security coordinator to document the situation. A small pause. I've also contacted the police non-emergency line, just as a precaution. The room had gone quiet in the way that rooms do, not entirely, not suddenly, but the conversations nearest to them had softened. People were listening. Some of them had turned. Autumn put down her fork. She looked at her mother. Vivian looked at Jonathan Crane for exactly as long as she needed to. Then she looked at the man in the untailored jacket. Then she opened her bag, a simple canvas tote, the kind sold at every pharmacy in the country, and took out her phone. She did not call anyone. She opened an email. She read it once, not to refresh her memory, just to make sure she had the details right. Mr. Crane, she said, what's your full name? He blinked. I'm sorry? Your name. Your full name, as it appears on your employment records. Something shifted in his face, small, like a door moving in a draft. Jonathan Crane, and you're the general manager of this property. That's correct. This property, she said, is owned by Harbor Group Hospitality. Is that right? A longer pause. That's correct. Harbor Group Hospitality's parent company is Whitfield Capital Partners. She said it the way she said everything, evenly, without drama, the way you state things that are simply true. I'm the managing partner. I've been the managing partner for 11 years. This restaurant was acquired by my firm 14 months ago as part of a portfolio restructure that I personally approved. The room was very quiet now. Jonathan Crane said nothing. He had the particular stillness of someone whose inner monologue had just stopped. I'm not going to ask you to explain your behavior tonight, Vivienne said. I'm going to ask you to step back from my table because my daughter is 7 years old today and we haven't had dessert. She picked up the menu and handed it to Autumn. And then I'm going to make a phone call. Not to the police, to your HR director, whose number I have. The man in the untailored jacket had taken a very significant step backward. Jonathan Crane stood there for one more second. Then he turned and walked toward the back of the restaurant with the speed of someone who understands that fast is all they have left. Autumn watched him go. Then she looked at her mother. "Mommy," she said, "what's a managing partner? It's the person in charge," Vivienne said. Autumn considered this. Like a principal? Something like that. Oh, she looked back at the menu, found the tote. Can I get the thing with the raspberries? You can get the thing with the raspberries. Tanya brought the tote. She brought it on a plate with a small candle in it, and she sang Happy Birthday in a voice that was slightly off-key and entirely genuine. And two of the tables nearby joined in, because people will, when given the chance, choose kindness. Autumn blew out the candle with both hands cupped around it, the way she always did, as if protecting the wish from the air. Vivienne watched her daughter's face in the candlelight. The crown was at a full tilt now. There was a small smudge of something. Bread, maybe? Or butter at the corner of her mouth. She was radiant in the way that children are radiant when they are happy and don't yet know enough to be self-conscious about it. The phone call happened after dessert, after the car was booked, after Autumn had fallen asleep against Vivienne's side in the back seat with her crown still on. Vivienne sat in the kitchen of their house in Rosedale and spoke for 22 minutes with the regional director of human resources. She was not loud. She did not describe what had happened as an outrage. She described it the way she described all business matters, accurately, with dates and names and a clear account of events. She mentioned Kyle and the fire code story. She mentioned the unnamed guest complaint that Jonathan Crane had been unable to locate when she asked him to. She mentioned the security coordinator and the police non-emergency line call, which had, as she noted, produced no officers because there was nothing to produce officers for. She mentioned Autumn's birthday crown and the chocolate torte with the raspberry coulis, not because it was legally relevant, but because she believed the people making decisions should understand what kind of evening they were making decisions about. The regional director, a woman named Audra, said very little. She asked 2 clarifying questions. She said she would be in touch by morning. By morning meant 7:43 a.m. when Vivian was on her second coffee. Audra called to inform her that Jonathan Crane had been placed on immediate administrative leave pending a full review. Kyle had been spoken to. A formal apology from the property's ownership, which was to say, from Vivian's own company, would be issued in writing. Vivian thanked her and hung up. Autumn appeared in the kitchen doorway in her pajamas, the paper crown inexplicably back on her head. "Is there leftover tote?" she asked. "There is not." "That's bad news. We'll get more." Autumn climbed onto the stool at the kitchen island and accepted her cereal with the equanimity of someone who has received good news in the form of a promise. She ate. Vivienne drank her coffee. Outside the kitchen window, the maple on the back fence was starting to lose its leaves in earnest, the way maples do in October, dropping them casually, like a person emptying their pockets. Vivian thought about the empty tables by the window, about the way Jonathan Crane had smiled when he said premium seating, about Autumn asking if they could come back next year and get the window table, about the fact that her daughter had asked for nothing extraordinary, just dinner, just a candle, just the dessert from the magazine, and had been made to feel like something to be managed. She thought about how many women had sat at that back table and not had the email on their phone. She thought about all of it for exactly as long as it took to finish her coffee. Then she rinsed the cup, put it on the rack, and went to get her daughter ready for school. 3 weeks later, a new general manager was appointed at Arbor. Her name was Beatrice Osey, and she had spent 12 years in hospitality management, the last 4 running a Michelin-recognized property in Quebec City. She met with the full staff on her first day. She walked every section of the floor. She stood at the table near the kitchen, the one with the view of the service station and the clattering doors. And she had it moved to a different position. Not dramatically different, but enough to face the window, so that whoever sat there could see the street. Vivienne never asked her to do that. She found out because Tanya, who had stayed on, mentioned it in a message she sent through the restaurant's feedback portal. She said simply, "The table is better now." Vivienne read the message and thought about Autumn's crown, tilted and gold, in the candlelight. She wrote back, "Thank you for being kind to us. There is a kind of power that announces itself. It carries titles and corner offices, and the right last name said loudly in the right rooms. It expects to be recognized. And then there is the other kind. The kind that walks in quietly, orders the salmon, and waits." Jonathan Crane spent the rest of his career believing he could read a room. He was wrong about that in a way that cost him something he couldn't get back. Not because Vivian Whitfield was powerful, though she was, but because he had looked at a woman and a child having dinner and decided, before a word was spoken, what they were worth. That decision was the mistake. Everything else just followed from it. If you've ever been underestimated, if you've ever sat at the back table when you deserved the window, then you know exactly what Vivienne felt when she opened that email. Not triumph, not revenge, just the quiet, unshakable certainty of a woman who knew who she was and had always known, even when no one else in the room did. Autumn got her window table, by the way. 2 weeks after Beatrice took over, on a Saturday afternoon when the light was low and soft and the maple leaves were blowing past the glass, She ate the tort again. She said it was even better than the first time. She wore the crown. If this story stayed with you, if you've ever watched someone be dismissed and wished the room could see what you see, share this with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment below. Have you ever been underestimated somewhere you had every right to be? We read every single one. And if you're new here, welcome to Velvet Honor. Hit subscribe because we're just getting started.